bars in a raid. Man, I go hard like Santan.
Welcome, everyone. This is another podcast by Touchline Hotspur underneath the Touchline Fracas banner, also known as the new Spurs order as of this season. Chaps, how are we? Kevin Nash throwing up hands first. How are we doing?
I'm good, brother. It's been a while, man. It's been a while. Busy time. So thought this week was a good time to show face and have a chat with my brothers, man.
I've loved how we've isolated the kind of non-Love Island watchers now streaming at this time. We've weeded out what the priorities are. Hey, sir, you're joining us from America, from Touchlines and Touchdowns. I believe, did I say that right?
Yeah, Asa. So, I guess in like the NWO theory, like am I X-Pac, like the one who doesn't really belong?
Oh, I took X-Pac, but you can have it for this one because I forgot to put it in my little thing today.
Okay, so that I need to figure out like who's like the least interesting member of NWO who joined at the end. So I'll figure that out later.
Yeah, it's quite weird, isn't it? Because we've actually got quite a big Spurs following over in America. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know why it happened. Like
that was going to be my follow up. Like,
so like the reason I went with Spurs was for like weird family reasons. Like my family, at some point, somebody in my family lived in North London in like the 1920s or something, because that's where my people lived, and I suppose we'll get there later. But like the rest of it is, I think like for a lot of people is like, okay, what's a good club but not like front running, I'm only picking them because they win stuff. And I was like, that's
yeah, I'm not sure about the good club. And actually, if your family lived there in 1920s, that's when we were winning stuff, isn't it?
I think so. I don't think that my family were fans. I don't even know if they spoke English when they were there. I think they spoke Yiddish, definitely, but not clear whether or not they were football fans. But I am, so here we are.
Oh, we'll definitely get into that. Tops, Booker T, how are we doing?
What's going on, brother? Yeah, good, man.
Apart from the knee aside, we obviously know you've got a bit of an injury going on, but
yeah,
how are your spirits?
I'm all good. Spirits are good, bro. Spirits are good. I mean, nothing that Spurs is doing right now is keeping me happy, but generally I'm good, brother. Can't complain, man.
And Dave, the Giant, how are we doing, brother? Fresh trim. You were trying to hide it earlier before we were on the pod, but
it's not even as fresh. I swear I had it last week, Thursday. Anyway, I'm good. I've been on the road quite a bit in the past week, but I'm back and just trying to show up unlike Kane. Do you know what I mean?
The claws are out already. My word.
Just trying to be here, innit? I'm just trying to be here.
True, man.
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Nothing like a contractual obligation. Do you know what I mean? Like,
shouts to
contractual.
Oh boy, so yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to get into it, aren't we? I mean, it's been pretty well covered by all kind of media outlets, but we've got our a star striker talisman not turning up to training. I think most people get the gist of it, but firstly, what do we make of this this excuse and this backtracking from Charlie Kane and from his camp, essentially saying that he's now on holiday in Florida, kind of not saying word for word that he didn't realize he was meant to be back, but trying to imply that I've got an extended holiday. Yeah, well, what do we think on that one? First off,
I mean,
so clearly BS, but yeah, go.
So for me, it's pretty clear what's going on, and like I made a joke somewhere that like, oh, he's in Florida, he's with his best friend Tom Brady. Tom Brady plays for the Buccaneers. Buccaneers are owned by the Glazers. You know, Glazers also own United, Kane to United. It's the whole thing. But it's pretty clear that he's just using this as leverage. Like you can say, oh, extended hot, but he knows that he wants out. Everybody knows that he wants out, but he's sort of giving everybody cover so that if it doesn't happen and he comes back, it's like, oh, I was always coming back. It was never a problem. I didn't want to leave. And it's bogus, and everybody knows it's bogus, but it allows, you know, Spurs official Twitter to be like, it's fine, and that's the.
Yeah, I mean, I want to play devil's advocate a little bit and kind of like I'll come to you quickly, Tops. Is there any justification for the way he is acting?
Oh man, it's a funny one for me, isn't it? Because I see you laughing. I see you laughing, Si. It's a funny one for me because I was one of the ones who, publicly said that I didn't see it in Kane to do this. I thought that he was, I did think he was a consummate professional, being the role model, England captain, and long time Spurs fan and player. I really didn't see it happening. So to actually, it was only really yesterday when they were like, he still isn't back in London, he's not training. That's when I was like, shit, he really doesn't want to be here. It really is trying to force his way out of the situation. And I don't know. It doesn't really sit well with me at this point. To be honest with you, my biggest thing is that I just think he's been advised wrong. I feel like he probably could have managed this a little bit better. I feel like maybe, I don't know what the situation with his brother is, or everyone's speaking about this, the talk of this gentleman's agreement or whatnot. But I don't know, as someone as high profile as he is, especially at Tottenham, I just think he's managed this situation really, really poorly, and it's only to his detriment at this point. There's nothing that can come good, that can make him look good at this point. I don't know. I can't see a leg that he has to stand on. His fellow professionals are out playing friendlies, doing fitness tests, and he's somewhere in Florida, probably in Disneyland or something. I don't really get it. I don't understand it, and I'm confused as to how we've got here. But man, I mean, we just have to wait and see what the club does at this point.
Yeah, I feel like the only justification he has, and I'm glad that Callum said it feels like Berber again, because funny enough, he came out and said that he did in fact train. He just decided that he wasn't in the frame of mind to play first couple of games of the season he left. So firstly, Berbatov did train. I think there's no doubt and no getting away from the fact it's just completely the wrong way to go about it. But as someone that I thought the club should have engineered and tried to help Kane get his move from early, because I mean, I don't think it's been any secret. I think it's probably been around from this time last year. He was probably looking to leave if we didn't get Champions League 2021. We didn't, and come this summer, we haven't looked like we've prepared to replace him whatsoever. And of course, centre backs have been a priority position, right? But we haven't really even been linked to any strikers. We've been apparently interested in them. There was apparent inquiry about Marcus Thuram, and then there's interest in Ings and Vlahovic, but no proactiveness. And not to forget, even if we didn't sell Kane, we would still need a striker anyway. So with us not preparing whatsoever to bring in someone to even appease him or replace him, on top of telling all of our new signings and Nuno and Paratici that we intend to keep him and he's staying, outright, Levy's been saying that he's staying. If you're hearing that from that side of the camp, in Kane's camp, then I can understand to a point, obviously, the frustrations. But again, it's just all a mess now. He should have obviously gone in with Charlie and had the talks. Sorry,
I think that's the kicker for me, mate. I'm right on that fence of it is what it is on both sides, to be perfectly honest. I'm seeing a lot of people, fans, saying, he's being held to ransom, but he signed that contract. Him and Charlie Kane probably did a bunch of Charlie after they signed that contract in celebration. So I don't really want to hear the sob stories. I'm all for player power. I feel like if you don't want to be somewhere, do what it takes to engineer that move. Whether that's at Spurs, in the NBA, in the NFL, no matter what organization it is, that is the world that we live in. But you also have to be prepared for the fallout. You can't have your cake and eat it, or in this situation, have your cane and sniff it, but it is what it is, man. Like, sit down with your people, get back to work, because you're not getting the move this year. You're not in a position of power. You're not in a position where you can really force a move when you've got 3 more years on your contract. Your price is your price. Respect it. Do your fucking job. That's where we stand at the minute. Or totally destroy the perception of you as a professional. And I don't think he's willing to do that because he's the golden child. So yeah, man, he just needs to get on with it.
Yeah, it's just a mess now as well. I think, and obviously with us not being proactive with that situation, it's just going to see us miss out on striker targets to replace him, as it's already happened. And Dave, like, would you echo that, or would you like to see Levy just kind of go all out to just try and keep him at this point, because we may have no other option, because essentially all of our options might get taken. You've got Vlahovic, who could end up going to Inter if Chelsea sign Lukaku. We've already seen Ings go to Aston Villa. There's a load of other moving parts as well, like Lautaro Martinez might not move from Inter if Lukaku goes either. So you'll see striker targets disappearing by the week. So
yeah, well, by the day, we're getting to that point in the transfer window. I think it's weird for me because even if you want to go to Man City, you'd want to be in shape. You'd want to have some sort of training under your belt, even if just fitness. Like if he turned up at Spurs and went, I'm not going to train with the first team, I'm just going to do fitness because I'm preparing, because I'm told you guys I want to move, and I'm going to try and force a move, that would make more sense. But if you're out on holiday in the Caribbean or Florida or wherever doing a tour of the West Indies, it just doesn't make no sense from the actual football perspective. Like if you're trying to get a move and the Premier League starts in 2.5 weeks, it doesn't make sense to be on a beach somewhere right now after the summer you've had, the injuries that you have most years, that kind of thing. And the thing that gets me, Charlie Kane, right, who's his brother, right? What I don't understand is, when at any point in the history of Spurs did Daniel Levy ever prove himself to be a gentleman? But what I'm trying to reconcile in my head is, why do you have a gentleman's agreement with a con artist? I don't get it, right? Like literally, this guy has let us down year after year. He's gone whole transfer windows without signing players. He's prioritized other things than the security of our club on the pitch success. We've got to a peak, didn't reinvest, didn't rebuild, and that's the guy you pick to have a gentleman's agreement. But that is like year 5 movements, or second grade for our American listeners. Sorry, that's real amateur. And I think for me, it's just the whole thing from signing a 6-year contract with Neil Levy. I wouldn't have done that. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't have banked on the Spurs hierarchy that much when we lucked ourselves into Pochettino, if we're honest. I mean, he wasn't a world-class manager from the jump. We got a bunch of players who matured at the same time, right? But still didn't win anything. And then you say, yeah, I'll mortgage another 6 years to you. Like, the whole thing from the jump has seemed a bit amateurish. And now, with him sticking out, and staying away from the club, I think it's just kind of combined. Just added to that whole sense of you're being a bit of a child here. Do you know what I mean? Like, if he comes back, I expect him to get on with the job. I'm at the case now. I don't care whether he's training or whatever. It's like, it's 150 mil. That's what I would want for him.
Can he come back?
I think he can.
Eric Diaz seems to think so.
Yeah.
Listen, Eric Diaz is wishing he comes back, because if the ball can stay up the other end of the pitch, Eric Diaz is doing right. For every goal that Eric Diaz lets in or causes, Kane has scored 2 anyway. But no, on a serious note, I think it's football, isn't it? I personally can move past that. Okay, cool. You had a bit of a hissy shot. Now it's time to work. It's when you get those phantom injuries. It's when he's looking a bit moody on the pitch. Then you start maybe having questions. And I think if he doesn't go in the summer, and we don't get off to a good start, which I don't think we will with our current team and the fixtures we have, you may see January, they may come in for there because he won't be cup tied with the Champions League. He probably won't play in any European competition for us in the opening few months. So Man City might turn around and go, right, we need a bit of a push. We need an extra, and they spend that 150 mil in the January transfer window. That could work.
So I was just gonna say, like, something that I thought that was interesting. Just like the more that we think about it, the more what Dave was talking about, how it doesn't seem to make sense. Like the professionalism of the whole thing doesn't really make sense. What I've been kicking around in my own head is maybe Levy is just waiting for August 16th. Game 1 is against City, so maybe you just hold him out. You hold him in your back pocket until after that game. You don't want to see him lined up across the field in that first game. I don't know if that's worth submarining the rest of the club.
He won't play.
I think Levy was always going to do that. To be fair, I think Levy was always going to do that. Knowing Levy like I do, I think
I can't see him being sold this year. Honestly, like if he was going to be sold, he would have been sold already. We've not had any inkling, as you guys have touched on, no inkling of any type of replacement, no inkling of any type of mass rebuild or anything like that. So that lets me know that we're going into the season with the squad that we have, with one or two adjustments. We've seen in the past, obviously, he learned from the Berbatov, and by he I mean Daniel Levy, who shall not be named for the most part, the bald Voldemort-looking guy. At the end of the day, we've seen that he has learned from his mistakes. The Berbatov situation, we left it to the last minute. We got Fraser Campbell in. We stunk up the joint. From the Bell situation, we saw that we were proactive, albeit maybe a little bit too flippant with the spend. We brought in the not so magnificent seven, and the rest is history. So I don't foresee us going into this season with Harry Kane out and no pre-planning for how we're going to spend the money.
Which it doesn't look like there has been whatsoever. To be honest, from what I can tell, there's been literally nothing, no talks of a forward. But hypothetically, it's hard to take Man City seriously in a sense as well, because surely there's no way that they could stump up the cash for Jack Grealish and Kane. And I feel like they're going to lump us with a couple of player exchange offers, obviously a player in cash. Personally, I would probably take 100 mil and Aymeric Laporte if we can convince him to actually join. But I'll go around. Like, firstly, with yourself, Si, is there any kind of offer, including a player exchange, that you would take?
If Bernardo Silva didn't call people monkeys, then I'd probably take him.
That's a good one.
That's fair.
Man,
So straight cash.
I've been saying it, man. That guy's funny, man. Let's not.
He's a weird guy, isn't he? He's one of
strange
the people that you think if he didn't have football, he would be. Yeah.
Hey, so is there an offer you would take in that sense?
I mean, I still think it's 130, and I don't know, Mahrez, does he help? Like I just like of the players who City would reasonably give up, none of them are really all that exciting to me. So I'd rather the cash and put it somewhere useful, because I mean, look, like, yeah, I would love Raheem Sterling. He's not coming.
Correct.
We can do that, but like, he's not coming. So like,
Sterling's a smart guy. Sterling's a smart guy. He's not going.
Yeah.
Go on, and Tops, is there anything you would consider?
I'd take it. The funny thing about, I think Si's mentioned this before. The funny thing about these player exchanges is that, like, they don't happen that often, because you effectively have to get two sides of it to be working in each other's favour. So not only does it have to work for both clubs, but it has to work also for both players. I mean, in this point, City have a lot of very good squad players, and I'm hearing lots of talk about Emerick Laporte. I personally would take him. I think he's probably about a 40-50 million pound player, an international Premier League experience, and he's not a bad player either. If Kane really, really wants to go, you know, I'd take him and 120 at this point, but I don't think it's going to happen. I was looking into it like yesterday as well, and I think Laporte's wages would put him near the top, or if not the top earner at Tottenham as well. So I don't think it's a player and like money situation. I really do believe it has to be a straight cash situation. But like, what's crazy is that everyone's talking about Kane saying no and Kane not turning up. Like, all we know for concrete is that City have put in a bid of 100 plus some players, and it was rejected. So if City don't put up the money, that's not on Tottenham, you know, that's on them, you know?
Yeah.
Dave, did you have an answer with that one? I can't remember now.
No, but I would echo that. Like, it is on City to come up with the deal that matches his value. If you just spent 100 on Jack Grealish, Harry Kane is a better player than Jack Grealish, you know, all things considered. Like, he's guaranteeing you 25 goals. He'd probably hand over, you know, the majority of the trophies that you enter over the next couple of years because he's that good a player, and in their system he'll thrive. You know, he'll get easier chances. You know, he'll be scoring goals for fun.
He won't score in a final though.
Yeah. And then as we've seen with City, when they're packing Arsenal 3-0 without a striker, they do the false nine thing anyway. So he'll fit in right in because he'll be the false nine. I think Laporte is the only option for me. I don't, you know, in terms of forwards.
Everything is having the upper hand because, like, Kane has just come off the season of his life, best output season of his life. He's just turned 28, which most people look at strikers as being in the peak of their career. City are desperate for a striker to take them over the edge, and Levy is a staunch negotiator. So I just don't understand what some people are suddenly being like, well, it would be silly of Spurs to not really listen, blah, blah, blah. I've just seen Ben White get sold for 50. I've just seen Grealish get sold for 100. They're putting Todd bloody Cantwell from Norwich for 40 M's. There is no way that if we put the price for Harry Kane, for whatever it should be met. And if it's not met, man, them man can skate. I'm not hearing it, man.
Yeah, that's what I mean with my point of not taking City seriously as well, because arguably, strongly so, they need Kane more than Grealish, easily. With Aguero departing in the summer, it made more sense. But yeah, they've gone for Grealish first, and they're going to use scraps to try and pay for Kane after. So yeah, if anything, Kane's camp have to kind of direct some of their anger and try and get City to show some more urgency and intent, because for what it's worth, he's gone on strike with no offer actually having come in yet.
You call that hustling sideways, mate? Flip it, no.
Sure, that's what I'm telling you.
So yeah, it's a sticky one. Charlie, you're taking on the big dog and it's not looking good. But yeah, that ended up following. Obviously, everyone's been talking about this on every media outlet. One such media outlet, so much go on to this point. So for those that don't know, there was a caller on a live Talksport stream who essentially just referred to Daniel Levy by his religion and used that to say, "Oh, he's not selling Kane because he's this," and then the club then replied with a statement which goes as followed. We were appalled that neither presenter addressed this comment, failing to call out the anti-Semitic trope. We are under no doubt that if an equivalent comment had been made regarding an individual's race or protected characteristic, the response would have been immediate and far-reaching. Furthermore, it cannot be acceptable that anti-Semitism does not receive the same level of condemnation as other forms of discrimination and efforts to tackle it. and it should be no less rigorous. Yeah, and ending on a statement. At best, Asa, you've got some thoughts on the incident, I've been told.
Yeah. So, you know, this is something I'm pretty well versed on. It's something that's specifically applicable to me. You know, I encountered this in my own life. You know, both the trope and the anti-Semitism, and also the question of whether or not people actually care about anti-Semitism, which is a question, because it's not clear if people do. Many people don't. So it's a tough situation, because that the statement does something that I personally really get annoyed about, which is trying to be, oh, well, if this was racist, you would have said it, but because it's anti-Semitic, you didn't. And that's annoying to me, because it puts anti-Semitism at odds with racism or homophobia or whatever it is. But it's all the same thing. So it's not to say that like I don't like that framing. But what I will say is that, especially with Tottenham's specific background with anti-Semitism as such, you know, the whole thing with the Yid Army, like, is that okay? Is it not okay? You know, who gets to say it's okay or not okay? You know, the fact that they put out the statement was encouraging. I appreciate it. The fact that the Talksport hosts didn't, you know, immediately say like, hey, that's not okay. You don't get to say that Daniel Levy's going to. I think that the caller said he's going to Jew them down or something, or he's a Jew, he's not going to get nothing, or something.
It was
like
the latter, yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, look, like, I've encountered that in my own life. It's like, oh, what, you're going to negotiate, you Jew them down? It's like, okay, that's annoying. Like, don't do that. It's anti-Semitic. You wouldn't do that thing in other contexts. And you know, I think that America certainly has its issues with this. England has pretty loudly had some issues with this. You know, obviously, you know, in the Labour Party with Corbyn, and to, you know, not to get into the politics of the whole thing, but or the history of the whole thing. The whole thing is politics, but you know, the fact that this goes on, and the fact that this is like the first thing that people think about with Daniel Levy, it's annoying. And it's not okay, because the fact of the matter is that there's not a club chairman or club owner who's going to be like, nope, whatever you offer, that's great, that's awesome, we'll take your first. Because you don't get to that position by saying okay to the first offer. Like, that's not how business or life works. So you know, the fact that it's like, oh, well, he's not going to do it because he's a Jew, is like, first, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on here, so I'm just going to say, like, yeah,
Wear away, mate.
Yeah.
Curse away.
Yeah, fuck off. Like, don't do that. Like, we, you know, you don't get to be anti-Semitic just because there are fewer of us, you know. But to the framing of it being like anti-Semitism as against racism, that's something that I think that we need to fight, because it's something that puts minorities at odds against each other. And not to say that one minority can't be racist or anti-Semitic against another. It certainly happens. But what I don't want is, I don't want this to be like, oh, well, I'm not anti-Semitic because I'm not racist. Well, okay, you can not be both. Like, it's super easy to not be racist. It's super easy to not be anti-Semitic. Just don't be a piece of shit. And you know, and it goes, you know, it goes further than that. Like, you don't have to just not be anti-Semitic. You can tell people who are anti-Semitic that they are pieces of shit. You know, like we all saw, you know, the way that people were talking about, you know, Saka and Rashford. And it's like, it's not enough to just not say racist things. It's when people that you encounter say those racist things, you're like, hey, you're a dickhead, don't do that. You know, it's you know, you can say like, oh, Marcus Rashford is a bad penalty taker because he was on the bench. Fine, cool, that's fine. You can't say all of the other things that were said. And it's the same thing, you know, about Daniel Levy and Daniel Levy's heritage and religion and culture. You know, like, my people are not better or worse than anybody else, and we would just really love to just not have to defend these things. Like, it's hard to explain beyond that. It's just like, I don't want to be here talking about the fact that Daniel Levy is Jewish. I want to be here talking about the fact that Daniel Levy can't get a fucking striker. But you know, like, but unfortunately, this is what we're doing. So I mean, like that's sort of a rant as such, but like it's annoying, and it's something that Daniel Levy shouldn't have to deal with, and the people on the street shouldn't have to deal with, and whoever else is Jewish like shouldn't have to deal with these things in the same way that if you're black or you're Asian or whatever. Like if you're a dickhead, you should just get to be called a dickhead. Like Daniel Levy can be called an asshole. Don't say he's a Jewish asshole. The Judaism doesn't have anything to do with the asshole, and the asshole doesn't have anything to do with Judaism, which is really the point. Marcus Rashford can be a bad penalty taker. It's not a bad penalty taker because he's black. It's a bad penalty taker because he wasn't on the field for the entire fucking turn. It's a separate point. But yeah. But like that's sort of what I have to say about that. I'm glad the Spurs put out a statement. I'm glad that they immediately condemned it. Wish that they didn't conflate it, as if it was like, it's better or worse or less or more important than racism. It's all the same thing. If you want to attack someone, attack them as a individual.
Of course, it's very eloquently put. So you've got to say, the initial sentiment can be appreciated, but then going on to do the oppression Olympics, I feel like they inadvertently done it, but the fact that they've done it, they put the statement out. They've obviously had to proofread it many a time, as every club does before they put out a statement, and they've just not picked up on it, and it's poor. And Sai, you had some strong thought on that too, brother.
Yeah, I think as Asa said, and I appreciate you coming on and putting that out there, because that was literally my sentiment in the group chat all yesterday. I don't get rattled by much, but the sort of struggle meritocracy approach to any sort of oppression or injustice towards people is one thing that really fucks me off. And as far as I'm concerned, anti-Semitism doesn't get treated with due respect, especially in particular circles. I think Talksport is where all of the sort of negative energy needs to go towards. Not the presenters so much, but Talksport as an organization, because the whole setup is to enable that type of opinion. So I find it quite ironic that it just so happened to happen with a black presenter. And the attack is literally, okay, cool. You've witnessed racism yourself. Why don't you come to bat for other people that are victims? But anyone who's been in a situation, either directly or indirectly on the receiving end of any sort of racial abuse. Funny. Jack throwing me off. I do get rattled a lot. That was cap. But yeah, when you are in a situation, when you are faced with any sort of oppressive behavior, everyone likes to think that they would be a hero in that situation. But the truth is, sometimes you are just taken back, and it's okay to be taken back. What is not okay is for a corporation like Talksport to build its stature and build its brand around channeling and empowering those type of minded people, and then sort of saying whether it's their female presenters or on this occasion their black presenter, okay, you take the heat for this one. You take the heat. We're not going to do any due diligence or quality control on our product that we're putting out. We're just going to leave you out to sea, and then put out some bullshit statement afterwards. That part of it really pisses me off. On the Spurs side, I was hurt because, as you mentioned, when you do pitch and frame those type of statements, saying this particular thing doesn't get as much attention as this thing, what that does is it further enables people who use that rhetoric on a day-to-day basis to say, okay, what component of this oppression is closest relative to me, and how can I make myself a victim as somebody who exhibits oppressive behavior? And that's what, unfortunately, a lot of football fans in this country do. At any given time, whether it's any solidarity with Black people or the LGBTQ community, or even if it's just like casual Islamophobia or something like that, they always say, when it's on the other foot, when it's closest to me, nobody says anything. And that's inherently not true. The fact of the matter is we can go through the instances over and over and over again where some things do just get treated with swifter when that person is closest to the person who can enforce the punishment. And in this situation, it does feel like Spurs have massively misread the temperature of the club, and also sort of just shown that they're a bit tone deaf to who their demographic is that they're speaking to, and how we feel as minorities that support this football club, because they don't represent me, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, so I just want to say something. Like I think you're right. Like again, like I don't think we disagree, but it feels like the inverse of situations where, you know, someone feels the need to, like, oh, this thing was anti-Semitic, so we're going to condemn anti-Semitism and Islamophobia and racism. It would, all Spurs needed to do was say this was anti-Semitic and that's wrong.
Precisely.
You know,
Exactly.
like you don't need, and it comes up a lot because it's like, well, if you are anti-racist, then you have to mention that you're against it. And you don't. This was not, this specific event had nothing to do with racism, qua racism, or LGBTQ issues. This was an attack on the Jewish community. So you just need to say that attacks on the Jewish community are not okay. You know, you don't need to say, well, if it was something else, blah, 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 or say it's not okay to do those things either. It's just, you know, this was a specific event, and you address it as a specific event. And don't pit people against each other, but also don't mention things that don't matter. You know, like, you don't have to say, every time you say we condemn anti-Semitism, you don't have to say that you condemn racism and homophobia and Islamophobia. All of those things you should condemn, but you don't need to condemn them in every single breath. You don't have to mention every single terrible thing in the world, because otherwise what ends up happening is everything gets subsumed and nothing, you know,
nothing gets resolved.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's like, when something is racist, you call it racist. And you don't say, I'm against racism and Islamophobia, because the Islamophobia didn't come up. And when the Islamophobia does come up, and it will, you say, I'm against Islamophobia. And when the anti-Semitism comes up, and it will, I'm against and it's just, you address things as they happen, not, you know, putting people against each other, or my oppression is worse than your oppression, or better, or it doesn't matter. You know, there should be none, and there should be no of any of this. And when it comes up, you address it on its merit, not as some sort of mealy mouth, large scale, I have it worse than you or better. Like, who cares? You know, call out anti-Semites, call out Nazis, so on and so forth. Against Nazis is generally like the idea. Anybody, you know, whatever. That's, I mean, I think that's what, you know, what we have to say on that. Be against anti-Jew, you know, be against Jewish hatred, be against Black hatred, be against Asian hatred. Don't be a dick. Super easy.
That might have to be the pod title at this rate.
Yeah.
Had it in mind with Kane, with the Kane reminding me of, like, if he does join City, it just reminded me. I don't know if you saw Dragon Ball Z, Isa, but you know when Vegeta ended up taking the powers of Majin from Barbody, he has the M on his head. That's what it will remind me of. But yeah,
Majin, yeah, I'm cool with that. Majin King is fine.
That's just what it reminds me of. I don't even hold it against him. Man, that end part of the statement as well. Like, I didn't really want to believe this, but obviously I know that statement's always going to be strong when it's against the chairman and the owner of Spurs. And I hate to think that the person who put out the statement or Levy encouraged it in a way that it helps, because the question was initially towards him and not selling Kane. And did that last part of the statement perhaps in his mind try and help him control the narrative, re keeping Kane? Because it takes sympathizers away from Kane towards him. I feel like that may have been in his mind a bit. I hope not, but yeah, that stunk a little bit to me. But anyway, I don't know if anyone else picked up on that, or if it's even a thing. That might just be in my head, to be honest. But
yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's easy to be cynical about the club when they come out talking about the club DNA and what we wanted in our managers and take 70 days to find a manager. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's easy to be cynical with most decisions from the club over the past decade, if not longer. For me, yeah, I agree with everything that has been said already. Virtue signaling, I don't like it. Just call out what you need to call out and we move on. Do you know what I mean? Like, again, we should be looking at this going, like, our club has stood up to this radio station. Bang, fine. They stood up, but as a black guy, I'm not quite sure about if I actually would have the same support, let's say. Or, if there were other scenarios, because of some of the language used in the statement, it can be a bit misleading, but you only hope their intentions are pure in a sense. And the reality of the situation is, and this is something that every institution has to face, when you start putting out statements, going up against things and pushing back, you need to keep that same energy. Because you do have black supporters, you do have LGBTQ supporters, like you do have supporters from all different minority groups, oppressed groups, whatever the case may be. So you need to be just very, very aware, like I said, read the room. Like the area of Tottenham, yes, there's a large Jewish heritage in the area of Tottenham. And if you walk down Tottenham High Road, you see a large black population. You see a lot of these minority groups living in the same kind of area and breathing the same air, trying to make something of life. That's all around the stadium. Do you know what I mean? So if ever there was a club who could pull together from the minorities and should maybe even make an effort to do this, and not just talking about this statement here, but just wider, thinking about the club as a whole, if ever there was a club who can pull on, literally, you at your front door, you have these minorities. You could go to these groups and say, what can we do? What kind of actions can we take? Not just to push back when a radio station has a situation occur and we're directly targeted, but even if we're not directly targeted, could we still help out the Jewish community around us? I don't know what they do. I'm not saying that they don't. I mean,
what they need to do is when opposition fans start hissing in the fucking stadium, to get the policemen that are just standing there docile to kick the fuckers out. Because I'm sick and tired of that shit. Like,
there we go.
I'm sick and tired of that. And that's the most emotive response you'll get for the rest of the pod from me. But yeah.
No,
like,
but
again, I've been in
totally
situations at White Hart Lane where I basically had to step away, maybe go and get a drink or something, because I don't play nice with that shit. So yeah, they need to do some actionable items instead of just statements when it suits them.
Yeah, same as when something comes out in and it goes viral. Do you know what I mean? If that moment had been missed, there is no statement. Do you know what I mean? But it's captured by someone, it goes viral. Now we're having a conversation. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think we can just be a bit more intentional. And if you're going to be pro minorities and defending those who don't have a voice and all that kind of stuff, great. Salute you, Spurs. Be intentional about it. Where are the actions? Because because of your own words, I can hold you to a standard that you yourself are saying that you're correct. Or as I would say, come on down.
Come on down.
Yeah. It is frustrating. It is frustrating because part of the statement for me, it did come across a little bit wishy-washy. I mean, like, I do agree with what everyone has said, especially what you said, Sai. Like, I just feel like the last thing you want to be doing is to have this sort of oppression Olympics or racial hierarchy, because all of a sudden then there will be some sort of discord or there'll be some sort of resentment amongst different groups. Like, even now, from a statement that was supposed to almost bring the situation together and almost put a stop to the situation and put a line under it, it could even push people further apart, because now you're looking at someone from maybe the LGBT community, or let's say, especially in the Premier League with Black Lives Matter, or even a black person, would now suddenly be looking at and being like, wait a second, are they saying that there's some sort of privilege to what happens to me and what happens to someone else? And that's like the last thing you'd actually kind of want, because essentially you're trying to put a line under this so that we can make sure we bring these communities together as opposed to break them apart. So I just feel like Spurs just need to be smarter, and similarly to what Dave said, whilst they've got to read the room, they've got to make sure that, like, when they are putting out these statements, these are statements that can be used in the future so that they can't come back and someone can then sub-tweet and say to them, is this you? Do you know what I mean?
And just like to put a further line under it, it's like, keep the same energy not only with the Black community and the LGBTQ community and other communities, but like keep this same energy with the Jewish community. Like, not just when it's attacking Levy, but like the rest of us. Anti-Semitic hate crimes, are up in both England, which is relevant here in America. Like where you been? Like where was your statement? When Jewish kids were being harassed on their way to school. Or is it that you only care about it when it comes after you, which is not okay. It's like, be about this when you are about this, or don't. If you just want to say like Daniel Levy is pissed off about this, fine, you can make that statement, but don't make it that you now care about the anti-Semitic issues in London and the rest of England. Either care or don't, but don't use my people as sort of a shield, but don't be with us when it's time to be with us, for better or worse.
That's absolutely fair. Eloquently put all round. And man, it's so things. I guess we'll move on now to
you all want to
slightly more. Yeah.
I mean, we do
so
this.
much.
We do this.
This is very on brand. To be fair, but obviously we've still got everything that seems to be going on. Like a week will pass at Spurs, and it just will not be the same club whatsoever. But finally, it looks like Romero is imminent. I really don't want to jinx that, because as we're recording on the Thursday evening, he hasn't been made official yet. But hopefully, by the time this podcast comes out, while you're listening to it, it should be official. Messi apparently kicking up a storm about it as well. I don't know who else seen this, but
that is the funniest angle of the whole Messi story. That he's literally
what a Pandora's box this could have opened as well.
Spurs, with all our crap that we've done this year, and just the mess that the club is in, that we can make the greatest player of all time for a hissy strop and walk out of Barcelona like, no, I'm not coming back. Like, Spurs, really? Oh, mate.
I want to see. Sorry, that meme of that guy who slowly gets in that car? It's like a gold car wearing the fur jacket. Yeah. I'm imagining that's Messi to Kane when he joins Manchester City, and then Kane has to walk back, and he's not really needed there if Messi's there, to be honest. But
I don't know how much of a fan Messi is of Ozzy Ardiles or Ricky Villa. Or
he's a fan of Romero, so come on down.
Carlo Gazzaniga or Eric Lamela or Romero.
Won the Copa America with Lo Celso as well.
Someone send him the picture of Maradona playing for us, and maybe you'll come over to North London.
And how can you not like Sonny? Like, who doesn't want to play with Sonny? So yeah, I see no issue.
No, I don't see any issue either. Levy paid the guy. I mean, he was willing to accept half his wages as well at one point. But yeah, I mean, if Barcelona aren't going to go for Cristiano Romero, then who can blame him, right? So yeah, hopefully that is imminent. I guess we've got to move on to other centre-back choices now. I guess Tomiyasu might be imminent now. Now the Olympics are over, as predicted. Like, we would obviously go for a player who has to compete in the Olympics for his home nation before striking a type of deal with him. And obviously, with being the home nation, they tend to go quite far in the competition. They got to the final, subsequently lost to Ryan Keel's Spain. So yeah, hopefully we'll see them soon. And we got possible outs as well. We got potential moves away for Tanganga and Churkin. I'll quickly come to you on that one, Dave. Like, what are your initial thoughts on that? I think Tanganga may have turned down the chance to join Galatasaray, but I don't know, could that have been productive for him?
Yeah, I don't see. I rate Tanganga really highly. Always have done. I've actually, I went to a few games and he, watching actually play in person, as it were, I was very impressed. I think his reading of the game is getting better. I could go on about how much of a fan I am of him. So I was a bit torn about the loan thing. I'm like, yes, he needs to get regular minutes, but also I think he could be a decent third option for us. But that means we have to get in a competent centre-back next to Romero. So we can't go into the season with Romero plus one of the others that are still at the club.
They're not naming anyone now.
Yeah, right. We're getting to the point of number two. I just don't say their name because they're that bad. And we saw it last night. Just don't be here. Just go. Someone save us. So I think Tanganga learning behind, or not learning, but he's only a few years younger than Romero, really. But being part of a kind of emerging core of defenders, it could be something special in a couple of years' time. We don't know. So I like to see him stay. Is it? Do you say Shirkin? Or, I don't know how you say his name. Is it Shirkin?
Shirkin, yeah.
Shirkin, yeah. You know what? I know I kind of follow some of the academy guys, but I haven't watched him too much. Now, everyone in the group chat's been telling me he is the real deal.
He's mustard, mate.
Right? So I'll probably let someone else speak on it. I don't want, if he is as good as people have been telling me, then what I'm hearing about a permanent transfer away, I'd be reluctant at, because we haven't proven Ryan Sessegnon at left back or left wing back or whatever. We've got obviously Reguilon, who we know is capable. He fell off a bit last season, but we can't go in with Reguilon, Ben Davies still at the club, and then Sessegnon, who's not proving yet. So I'd rather keep someone who seems to have a bit of promise. And we've got the Conference League. We've got games, ready-made games that you can play some of these younger players in to get them through. And if they go out on loan in January, once the competition hots up, then great. I think that might be beneficial for some of them. But just dumping them somewhere for a year might not be the way to go. We saw that with Troy Parrott last year. What did that do for him? Nothing.
I'm a bit worried about the handling of our youth players. And this goes back to when Pochettino was still at the helm. I think a lot of the time what we do is we look at them getting their debuts under a manager and we go, oh yeah, they're being given chances, but sustained runs in the team are the only way to really build a profile, to even build up any sort of adequate return value. I think when we look at say Carl Walker-Peters, our good mate Windy was going on about him for a long time, and we saw his qualities. He started games and he looked very, very consistent, and until it didn't. And when it didn't look consistent, then he was out the door pretty much instantly. Similar type of thing happened with Danny Rose in the early stages. He went through a bad patch. We shipped him on loan. Thankfully, Pochettino saw something in him and invested in him, and he ended up being one of the best left backs in world football. So I think there is a little bit of a worry for me from what I have seen of Sirkin. He looks composed on the ball. He seems like the type of refined player that can be nurtured into being stronger, faster, more positionally aware, and all of those things. I think once you have technique at this level with the men's game, you can build the building blocks to become a competent defensive player, or in his situation, an attacking fullback. Like, all he has to really learn is timing and consistency of being in the right place at the right time in order for him to basically be the best option at left back, as far as I'm concerned. We've, as you mentioned, we've not seen a lot out of Sessegnon. Tanganga sort of worries me at the minute as well. I feel like he's fourth choice at best at this point in time. And again, that's by virtue of the fact that there was an opening for him. We went and brought in another young centre back who has more game time underneath him in Rodon. So yeah, man, the handling of the youth players is a bit bad at the minute. So we need to fix up.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big fan of players taking their own destinations into their hands. Like we've seen it with Marcus Edwards and Nordi Madueke. The circling move makes sense. I don't think it's an attitude problem from a comment we've got here on stream, but I feel like he's probably seen his path somewhat blocked by Sessegnon, by Reguilon. So a permanent move makes sense. I would just hope that the club have put in a kind of buyback clause for him, perhaps. Because yeah, that makes perfect sense. Because I feel like maybe he can probably play at a higher level than Sunderland. I don't know if they've got a promotion or not. I should follow Football League, but I just don't, unfortunately.
No.
So yeah, if they didn't get a promotion, what are they in League 2 or League 1?
One.
So they're in League 1. Yeah, so I don't know. I think I would have preferred a Championship move for him. Tanganga, I would prefer a Premier League loan for him. I think he's definitely good enough because it is just a case of just getting those games underneath his belt. Like I feel like he's got the ability, but the experience not so much. He got injured a lot last season. Maybe if we rock up with the three at the back this year, then he'll definitely get game time. But for me, it looks like we're going 4-3-3 from what we've seen in pre-season so far. But yeah, it's an interesting one. There's not really much other noise about other incomings at the minute from sources, even though some transfers can just happen out the blue, like we saw with Danny Ings yesterday, even. But there was rumours now, I think it's come from Alistair Gold, that Ndombele missing out. I mean, he's been missing from the last few squads from in pre-season. He's had a child, so I mean, we don't know the condition of the mother of his child, or I don't even know if his partner's in France or London or whatever, or if there's a problem with the baby or whatever. But hopefully there's not, and everyone's in good health. He has been in training, so I'm getting a few ominous vibes. And now he's coming out and apparently saying that he'll be unhappy if Aurier and Sissoko are let go, which is the intention. Tops, what would your initial thoughts be on that? I know you're a massive Ndombele fan, as am I, as are the rest of the pod. I don't know, but should he be turning around and getting flaky if his mates are up for sale, though?
I mean, the way I see it, it's disappointing to hear this, man. This is a 24-year-old that we signed, record signing, and I don't know, just hasn't seemed to hit the ground running. He's just had a real patchy sort of 2 years at Tottenham. He played 20-odd games in the first season, and last season I think he played 30 or 31, or started 30, 31 games. So I kind of feel frustrated at the moment because, especially having not been picked for the France team or the France squad for the Euros, I thought it would give him the chance to hopefully get himself right with a new manager incoming, get back to the training ground like some of the other lads and just get to work. And he has been sort of in the training ground, and there's been pictures of him when, you know, we started our pre-season. But strangely, he's not been any of the squads, which has been disappointing because one of the biggest things we've always spoken about, what looks to be one of his flaws, is his conditioning. And you would hope with a decent pre-season behind him that he would try and kick on with his new manager and really show what he's about going into his third official season at Spurs. But to hear things like he's not that keen on staying because Aurier and Sissoko, I mean, I don't really know what to say.
Who reported that part of
Alistair.
Alistair,
Go.
yeah.
And it's gold.
It kind of reeks of just
that guy's a mole,
a
man.
little bit childish.
He's a mole.
Because, like,
Just give me a sec. Let me put my Tanguy cape on. Because as far as I'm concerned, right, these guys in the club that seem to have these sound bites about players' attitudes and all of that bullshit, man. How about we factor in the fact? How about we factor in the fact that this guy has had 3 managers in 3 seasons?
well, this is it. This is it, man. Like, and this is what I'm trying to hold on to, because at the end of the day, nobody's questioning this man's footballing ability. No one's questioning his role as a midfielder, a progressive midfielder, which we've needed at Tottenham for years. But then you're looking at all these different things, different managers coming in, his conditioning not being right, him settling into a new football club, him being the age that he is, and also now having a child and the potential of 2 of his closest or probably best friends, as we call the Mafia at Tottenham, now leaving or potentially not being there. All these different factors are now in this sort of melting pot for him, and he's probably thinking, you know what, maybe I need to just knock this on the head and start again elsewhere. But I don't know, part of me also feels like I want him to actually go the opposite way and be like, you know what, I've got a family now, I've got a club who trusts me and wants to believe in me, I'm the highest earner at this club, I'm not injured, why not just crack on and give it a good go this season? When they need you, with the possible outgoing of the star player, why not take up the mantle and just go for it? I don't know. I'm in 2 minds at the moment, because like I haven't even seen him this season or even in preseason to be able to see what I want to see from him. It's so frustrating, and then the potential, the possibility that he could be on the way out is even more harrowing at this point for me, to be honest with you. So,
As long as we as fans still have complaints about our transfer dealings, especially with the incomings, I don't think anyone really has a leg to stand on to even blame the guy. We can all acknowledge that Tanguy Ndombele is probably the most talented football player at the club that isn't named Harry Kane. So
Agreed.
Why are we not building around that player?
That's the
Like,
point.
if we're gonna sit there and be like, oh yeah, you just have to fit into whatever system we choose to deploy on any given day, that's not what top clubs do with their top talent. Like, you can go through the list of midfielders in Europe, and the best ones have the dynamics built around them that accentuate their ability. We don't do that with Tanguy.
And it's an interesting situation, because you would think that they could, take me off the cape.
Yeah.
You would think that they would try to provide him with a situation that would cover for whatever he doesn't want to do. And in certain ways, it appears that they were close to getting there. And then, you just sort of let it go, and you don't make sure to bring him in on the discussions around the manager. I mean, I didn't hear anything about like, hey, Tanguy, like who do you want? Who are you interested in? What kind of manager do you want? Do you want someone to play more progressive? What is your system that you want to play with? Because I promise you that serious clubs and serious organizations, they go to their best players and they say, what do you want to do here? Who do you want? Who are you comfortable with? What system do you want to be running? And if they brought him in, like presumably they had discussions with Kane before Nuno came in. Hey, is this something, you've seen Wolves for now 2 years? What do you think? You can go talk to Matt. What does he have to say about it? And the fact that it appears that didn't happen, or at the very least it happened and they didn't care, is an indictment, because he should be not only should he be on the field, he should be happy on the field. The role is to make sure that he's not, it's tough, because you want to say like, yeah, you want, he's a grown man, he's a professional, be a professional. But look, everybody else at that club is a professional too. And your job is to make sure that he wants to be there. He wants to be on the field playing his brand of ball. And, you're bringing new people in, bring in people who work with him, And I'm not saying don't sell Serge and Sissoko. You got to do what you got to do. But, if you sell both of them at once and your best player is like, hey, those are the only 2 people I talk to because I don't feel like learning English or Portuguese, well, that's a problem. And I don't know if he doesn't speak English or Portuguese. I'm just saying, like, if he wants to speak French, have someone there who can speak French. It's not that hard. Musa Sissoko, everybody loves him. You don't need to sell him. I don't think his wages are so high that you're dead in the water if you don't sell him. So I mean, I think that as a club, you got to make sure that your players are happy, not just taken care of, but like we care about what you think about the game. You're not just someone we plug in and out like it's a video.
Yeah, and it's evident as well. I don't think he gets enough credit for kind of changing his game to the extent he did last season, where he by all accounts worked very, very hard to make sure he could play in like a kind of deeper midfield too. Everyone said how much better he became and how much more tenacious he became, slightly more defensively minded. You kind of have to be under Mourinho. Like even when he did play as the most advanced midfielder, he was always asked to do the dirty work as well. And there were still plenty of games where he's very good at that, and he improved on his conditioning immensely as well, despite the lack of sports science available to him under Mourinho. So yeah, I personally, I just want to see a little bit more clarity on it. Nuno alluded to some players being left out for fitness reasons, but then went on to say there are a lot of players being left out. But it was just, it doesn't look great at the minute.
That was a wishy-washy response, man. I didn't like that. Like,
it's easy to say that when it comes to Tom.
Like they asked you about a specific player, and you then go out and say generally there's lots of players and there's all fitness issues. I didn't ask you that, brother. I asked you what's the situation with Ndombele. Like it's scary to me as well because it's like
he's allowed on the bench.
So many players come out and say that this guy is good. So many coaches come out and say this guy is good. There's a reason that we spent the money we spent on him, and still. Like every week when I see the team sheets and I see no Ndombele, I just sigh. I'm just like, I don't get it. I literally do not get it. Like I don't know. I'm not sure if it's me. I don't know. I'm just watching what's going on, and I just keep thinking that it's going to push us into a corner where we're going to be like cut our losses, and barely giving this guy the like Asa said, we've barely given this guy the tools to work. Like. I don't know. Did
anyone notice as well?
I'm so confused by this. I don't really understand it. Still don't get it.
The Chelsea game when they showed the lineups and they showed the substitutes bench, and it showed that Chelsea had one more substitute named than we did. It's just like we can't even get someone in that spot. Like that was. Yeah, that's kind of confirmed to me. It was all weird. Like it could have just been a statement as if to say, okay, he's got a bit of a knock, he's got a bit of an injury. That seems to be the kind of standard response for these kind of situations. But yeah, as I say, it doesn't look good. I want to see what happens. I mean, we play Arsenal soon. I think that's our last preseason game, and
fuck with that, man.
Yeah, we'll see it from there because. In my opinion, our best midfield three, if we do have a midfield three, is Skip, Højbjerg, and Ndombele. Because I mean, I've been hoping Dele shows me something in pre-season that shows me he can play at a high level for this club in the European position. So far, no. I've got to say.
Listen, Harry Winks was the best player on the pitch for us yesterday.
Hey, and we'll get into it. We'll get into it.
Hold on. Let's get into it, please.
For you to pack up,
so we played Chelsea.
Get into it.
So we did play Chelsea.
Jacket's going to have an aneurysm.
The lineup, if I remember correctly, Golini got his debut, a keeper we signed from Atalanta. We have Matt Doherty playing at right back. That's it, yeah. I said his name. Sorry. Japhet Tanganga and Eric Dier at centre back. And regular at left back. Then we had Skip, Højbjerg, and Dele. Dele played the most advanced midfield role in a 4-3-3, which was topped by Bergwijn on the left, Son, and Lucas Moura. And Asa, did you want to take us through the first half of what you saw in the game? Because I kind of got from our Discord chat that you were keeping fairly close tabs on it.
Yeah, I was paying attention, to the extent that I could. Like the unfortunate thing about being in America for these things is that it was noon on a Wednesday, So don't tell my work that I was paying attention to it. I own my own business. It doesn't matter. But like it's sort of
they're
hard
watching the stream, so
yeah, I'm my own boss. But don't tell my wife that I was watching the game during work. But so watching the game, like it was instructive. Before the subs came on, at least as far as I could tell, we learned a fair bit about who can and can't play at the level that I think we all feel Spurs need to play at. And I rate Tanganga. I like him a lot. It's on that first goal, was Mora's fault, I guess, for giving up the ball, but Tanganga could have closed them down, and he was passive, and he waited and he waited and he waited. And look, it was a good strike, and maybe it should have been a save, maybe not. It was it was pretty far out, but it was an indication, at least to me, that like he's not ready to be part of a center back pairing, at the Champions League level. Now, do we need him to be right now? No, we don't. But it's an indication of where we need it to be. I thought that Skip was average. I wanted him to be a lot better than he was. I thought he played fine, but I wanted him to flash, and I didn't see it. I didn't see him flash. I thought that we got further confirmation that Dele Alli is not an 8, and can't really play at the 8. He was pretty instrumental in the build up to the first goal, but that was after Chelsea had already made subs. Conte was out. A couple others had come off. So I think like when you go through it and you go through the list of players who you wanted to see something from, and for me that was Tanganga, Skip, and Dele. Yeah, it wasn't great when it was serious time. Because we could say like, look, yeah, it was a draw, blah, blah. Matt Miazga was on for Chelsea for the last 10 minutes. It was not a serious game in the second half. Both teams were trying and giving it their all in the first half, and Spurs were down 2-0, and they deserve to be. Yes, Dele Alli would be a great Love Island contestant. I guess I don't really know. I don't want I'm telling you, I want to make a specific joke about Dele Alli's love life, and I'm just not going to do it because I don't feel like bringing up Pep Guardiola right now. But moving on, the players on the pitch, like we know who Lucas Moura is, we know who Steven Bergwijn is, we know who Sonny is, we know but the players who you're not really sure about, at least in this setup, is Dele at the 8, Skip on the first team, and Tanganga as part of a center back too. And I thought all three didn't flash the way that I had wanted them to.
I think the issues with the lineup were exasperated by the fact that we still keep misassigning Højbjerg as a holding midfielder. Like, he's not a fucking anchor man. He never has been. He is the most capable player of the three to make a progressive pass, unfortunately for Dele Alli. I feel like Skip needs to be nurtured at some point very, very soon. Otherwise, he will be in that category of player where every time he misses a pass, every time he's unavailable to receive a pass, and anytime he does anything that isn't glorious, he's going to get jeered. Like, he doesn't exude confidence and charisma enough for people to ever really latch onto him as somebody that they're going to cheer regardless, which is probably why Harry Winks gets the stick that he does. But yeah, I just want to see them really, really figure out like what these roles in the midfield are actually going to be, because it's okay putting whoever's available, but I couldn't for the life of me see where Højbjerg was for the first Chelsea goal. When in theory, if your wide man loses the ball in the center of the pitch, there shouldn't be two players running onto your centre backs. There should be.
I think it was Højbjerg that played the pass to Moura as well, wasn't it?
Precisely. So where's he disappeared to? It's weird. It's like the area of the pitch where he should have been sort of stationed in order to prevent any sort of counter attack. He wasn't there.
Nowhere to be seen.
Over the course of the game, I just saw that there was no one really ready to receive any pass from a centre back. We were trying to go wide all the time, and Chelsea obviously had 3 at the back, so they had enough players to basically overload defensively and just press us really, really high up the pitch. And we didn't have an outball at all. There were no vertical passes available. There was nothing. There's no space on the wings for us to create any sort of passage of play. It's diabolical, to be perfectly honest. Diabolical. He's still the best centre back we have currently, but that's not saying much.
Oh, scary hours. Yeah, scary.
On a separate point, he played exactly as he always plays. So,
yeah, there were moments where he didn't exactly fill me with confidence. But yeah, I mean that's Eric in a nutshell. But I mean, like it was touched upon, we had a second half where changes were made from Chelsea's end. We did come back in the game from 2-0 down. We only made the one sub ourselves, so that arguably and probably changed the game. Tops, how did you feel we did in the second half?
Do you say it changed the game?
Half, I thought
Changed the game.
Evidently, it changed the game, brother.
Yeah, I thought second half we were better. I mean, I was saying in the group, I was very vocal in the group. I thought the first half was awful. I thought Ali was terrible. Number 2, not very good.
Shocking.
Dyer,
He should have had a penalty as well, bless him.
For the goal, I mean, I understand Tanganga as a young defender should probably go and deal with that. But if you watch that passage of play, Dyer is actually the player who is initially closest, and as he's reverting back, he's almost pointing for Tanganga to pick him up, and he clearly sees that Tanganga is not going to pick him up. So in that moment, he should probably take the onus and pick him up. So that's something that I always see with Dyer, him passing on the blame or him doing anything but defending. So that first half was to be honest with you, a write-off. It was very disappointing. Son was picking up central positions, but again, like, this man cannot play with his back to goal, and was way too far from Lucas and Steven Bergwijn. Second half was improved. I mean, yes, Winks coming on did definitely improve. First of all, the amount of percentage of possession that we had, retaining it was better. And also just finding, as Size sort of said, finding these areas in between the lines, trying to progress the ball and not play like on the back foot as much. Obviously, we got that goal from Lucas, which was the deflected effort. And then Steven Bergwijn obviously created his own goal with a decent run, burst of pace and finish. So, I mean, it was improved because, one, we didn't lose and we did get better. But that's obviously at the expense of Chelsea making us 6 or 7 subs. And we only making the 1 sub and maybe them gassing out towards the end. So I'll be interested to see how we perform on Sunday against Arsenal. I do feel like whilst we have lots of first-team players who are not there, the important ones are the ones that I feel like we're missing. So the Kanes, a decent right back, and Ndombele, Lo Celso. But the lads who did fill in, I mean, I won't speak anymore on Lucas Moura, to be honest with you. And Dele Alli, yeah. So at this point, I'm just going to wait and see what happens on the weekend. But I do feel like the recruitment is a big issue. It's still a big issue. Like, even though Golini, who's come in, and I thought he played very well, all things considered.
Agreed.
Romero, hopefully, without jinxing it, is about to be, we are really in dire need for another right back, another centre back, and ideally a striker or an attacking midfielder. But the recruitment has to sort of come together in the next week or so, because if we go into the start of this new season with this team, I mean, it's not good. It's not positive. I'm like worried. I'm like supremely worried, and I don't want to be too negative before the season starts. But I just feel like from the off, he'll have a target on his back. Nuno Espirito Santos, he'll have a target on his back, and it's not his fault because he'll just have the same players which we were all complaining about last season, you know. So
He signed the
hopefully
contract, man. He should have known what time it was.
Yeah, man. Hopefully we can try and change it, but you know, let's get Lo Celso back. Let's get Ndombele back. Let's just let's get Romero into the squad, and because hopefully having a quality defender again will just boost the confidence of our defenders and boost the ability for us to know that okay, every time we turn our backs, we're not going to be picking the ball out of the back of the net.
Yeah, for me, I think friendly, it confirmed a lot of my fears about what a Nuno team would be. I know he's got quite a lot going against him in a minute, but yeah, just the lack of being able to string 3 passes together, the lack of options, the lack of the intent to build play, even in a friendly game. I know it's an intense game against Chelsea, but in a friendly, like you've got to be braver at least and try and work on playing in a way which went against what we saw last season, where we were pretty much just trying to give it to Tanguy and hope that he could just build play by himself. So yeah, hopefully we can address this going into the season, because that lineup which we put out was by and large what our current best lineup is. I mean, apart from maybe Lloris coming in for Galini, that is our current best lineup based on the players we have available. I guess apart from Ndombele coming in for Delhi, but still it's a damning verdict. And him going in with a back 4 as well, with attack-minded fullbacks like Doherty, like Reguilon. I don't know if that's the smart thing to do. I still think him going to that 3 at the back, which he had at Wolves, probably suits us better. But again, we need to be much better at actually keeping the ball to at least be able to play any shape or any form, to be completely honest. But yeah, like you said, Tops, we need to be more proactive in the recruitment department. We need at least 3 or 4 players, even if Kane doesn't go. But we'll see. I mean, I think we've got no choice now but to try and keep Kane, because otherwise it's just going to end up being one of those situations like Berbatov where we end up having to settle for a Fraser Campbell and a Pavlyuchenko. And yeah, I'm not confident, and I'm usually a bit more of the optimistic type, but yeah, just us missing out on Danny Ings as well just reaffirmed to me how unproactive we are being at the minute. But yeah, that
when you say missing out though, were we really in for him?
No, but that's the problem. I think. I think that's the problem.
We even if we kept Kane, we need another striker, right?
Yeah,
Well,
if we're not in for a player,
so.
then we miss out
Well,
on him. Surely.
This is it.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, there's been, we keep getting told, and I'm a big Paratici fan. He got Lamelo out of the club. I'm very happy with that. Let's be honest.
And Joe Hart.
Joe Hart, I'm happy about.
Yeah, the Head and Shoulders advert
Baby Giraffe.
it's not working. It's not working. Like Paratici, he's obviously doing some work, and we can't fault him. And by all accounts, he secured Romero. Great.
Mm.
We were told that he works on 10 targets and lands 1. Can you name 10 strikers that we've been linked with?
No, because we don't look for strikers. It's son or bust, isn't it?
It's son
It's
or bust.
only, this time last year, we were linked with almost every striker in Europe. There was Weghorst, there was Milik, there was Piotek, there was every almost every name in world football.
Janssen, so yeah, man.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. But then, like, do you know what as well? I'm not sure. Like, I won't go into it too much. But Grealish obviously is just signed for Man City, and interestingly, Villa put out this 5-minute video talking about their decision making with Jack Grealish. And the one thing that I took from that video was the fact that their management, their recruitment team, the board, they realized that there was a potential for some situation to arise like this. And not only did they planned for it, but they were completely prepared for it. And now that it's been actioned and Grealish is now gone, with that money incoming, they've now known that they need to prior plan, buy some strikers, buy some attacking players, so that come August 15th, when the league starts, they're not in a situation whereby they are fucked. And you're looking at Tottenham and you're thinking, fine, whilst we are a club of a bigger profile than them, and we have more, what's the word I'm looking for?
We should have
we
more
have
pull.
more, like, what's it called? Not like a higher, more leg to stand on, but we've got more. The word will come to me anyway.
Cachet.
Yes, as a football club, you would almost think that we would be in a position whereby we have specific names, specific targets, actions, but you can clearly see now that at Tottenham, there's no plan. There's no action. There's literally nothing. It's just vibes. And it just scares me, because you would think after all these years, we would have learned from all of our mistakes. And still, as a club, no. Like, I mean, how is it, lads, that we're going into the new season, honestly, with the only recognised striker, apart from Kane, as being Dane Scarlett? Like, it's shocking to me. I've no idea. And we can go on about it because we've always going about strikers. But how are we in this position where we clearly knew the squad needed changing? We knew that there needed to be some prior planning, some action done with this director of football, and still we're now going into a week before the new season, and we've only done a percentage of what we actually need to be doing. Like, it's just frustrating. It's very frustrating, because you want to give these guys a chance. You want to give the football club a chance, but then constantly they just give you opportunities to make you feel like, you know what, these men are moving like they don't know what they're doing.
We did this last year, or well, not we. Some certain man did this last year with Everton, and we saw how that planned out. So I'm not worried, man. Like, I'm not worried about Villa. Never worried about Villa.
Yeah,
there's only a few clubs more Spursy than
it's not-
Spurs, and Villa are on that list.
I'm not worried about them. Definitely not. It's just more like, you know, I just want us to see us move like the club of the stature that we are. Like, I want us to see us making big moves and smart moves, not reckless left to right, here and there, up and down. Like,
Big clubs keep their best players, my brother.
they do.
Son signed a new deal.
He did.
And Christian Romero was the best defender in Syria,
And he wanted to come.
their division.
And
So
he wanted to come to Spurs, you know? That knock is different, right?
It's just, I think we all agree. We just need to see stuff move quicker, because those first 6 weeks of our season, if we're bringing in people from the Olympics, they're going to be playing for a little while.
Do you know what I mean?
Like, you know, even if we were thinking to put them in the first 11 and starting lineup or whatever, like, you know, we need to make sure we've got Prem ready, or, you know, just fitness wise, they're ready to hit the ground running, whether it be for the Man City game or, you know, I can't remember who we got after that. We just need to get it done.
Watford.
I don't disagree. But if your primary targets are guys that happen to be playing in tournaments, then so be it, man. Like, I'd rather us get the right target than make concessions and then regret it later, because we've seen the club do that before. So I'm about things being timely, but not just fast. Do you get what I mean? And in some instances, I feel like
but then you look at Sabitzer. Look at Sabitzer going to.
That's another one, man. Like, I was never convinced by him, so it is what it is.
he's good enough for Bayern Munich, though.
Yeah.
He's going to be riding the bench at Bayern Munich. Højbjerg was good enough for Munich, remember?
Yeah, but they sold him. That's a bit different.
But that's the point. They'll sell Sabitzer in a year or two anyway, man. Same stuff with Bayern, man.
I feel like the Ings
probably
one
to Spurs
was
for
one that
60
we missed
million.
out on, man.
Probably.
I feel like the Ings one, that's a player coming up towards around his prime, a player who wants to play for a higher sort of level of team, profile of team, a player who has Prem experience, and clearly we had discussions. We clearly had. So the fact that we've not even been interested or even looked to be interested in that one is a disappointing one, to be honest.
Yeah, it's fair. For me, like I think if we were to end up replacing Kane, or even without selling Kane, we needed someone who is essentially going to hit the ground running, especially in the Premier League. And Danny Ings, not necessarily a sexy name, but he is a proven goal scorer in the Premier League, and he looks a class player as well. So yeah, for us to not even be in with a sniff was disappointing, because we're on the verge, well, we're on the kind of border of our homegrown quota as well. So it just made so much sense for us to not get such an attainable player of that ilk and quality. And yeah, that's the thing. May have not been 100% in my mind either, but I feel like he's definitely a profile player, especially a playmaker that we need in this team. And for 15 million, that should have been music to Levy's ears. That should have been music to Paratici's ears. But yeah, it seemed like all the previously shortlisted targets kind of all went out the window when Paratici came in, and Steve Snitchin, as he's been named on this podcast, has been just completely overruled, bless him. And I think it's let us, it's ended up in us slipping behind a bit in our planning, in our squad planning in general. So yeah, some catching up work to do for Paratici and Snitchin for sure. But just to end on a positive note, Christian Romero signing, again, huge statement signing for a priority position. So fair play to them and getting that done, because spending that much money on a defender was something I didn't actually expect. 50 million euros, big statement. Let's hope he can do the business. But that just about wraps it up for us. We had another nice long pod for you guys. Again, check us out once the season starts, August 14th, 15th, wherever it is, in the Discord chats. We'll be vocalizing our pain for you, I'm sure. And yeah, shout outs to the people watching the live stream as well during Love Island as well. We appreciate you. And we'll catch you again next week for a new Spurs. Huh?
Shout out to Asa for joining us.
Oh yeah, massive big ups. Asa just had to leave because his daughter's just woken up from a nap. But big up Asa from almost got his podcast from
Touchlines and touchdowns.
Touchlines and touchdowns for joining us. Spoke eloquently well. It's always nice to speak to an American Spurs fan as well, because again, I'm always pleasantly surprised with the fan base we have out there. But yeah, that wraps it up. Again, feel free to tune in next Thursday for a stream, and again next Saturday for another pod. It's been a new Spurs order. Talking a lot of nonsense.
Shout out, my guys.
Signing out. Peace.